easy way to set off public debt. They're supposed to actually, you go into a store and you buy a lawnmower. Let's pick on Sears. I always pick on Sears. Do you have Sears over there?
No, we don't, fortunately.
Well, okay, Sears is just kind of your classic store for everything, you know.
I know. Yeah, we have similar ones over here. We have that for sure.
Well, I always pick on Sears because for no reason other than I thought it was kind of worldwide almost. But anyway, so you go in there. What they're supposed to do when you take your lawnmower to the counter is they're supposed to write you up a bill that says who you are, who the Sears is, and the cost of the thing, and what it is, what they get. And what we're supposed to be able to do is simply sign for it, thereby claiming it, and giving them access to what's called a treasury account so that we can let the Treasury know to offset Sears' debt, which Sears created, by the way. We didn't create it by buying the lawnmower. They created it. They wrote it up as a debt. And all we're doing by signing the bill is saying, I'm authorizing the Treasury to balance your accounts for you because I now know you have a debt. So you want it balanced. But for us to pay with cash, our labor, believe it or not, is actually increasing the debt. It's doubling it because the amount's the same. Then they give you a receipt which shows you that you've paid. Well, in fact, this did not set off their debt. It increased the problem because we gave them debt notes. Now, this is a huge, long diversion, which I don't really want to get into, but when we labor, we are putting forth our value, and what we're getting in return is debt notes. In other words,
yes.
Those notes operate in debt. It's kind of like picture the level of seawater. Well, there's nothing. We are putting in something positive, so imagine the sea going up, right? But what they're giving us is something negative, so now we're operating below sea level. So it isn't direct compensation. In fact, we are giving away our labor for nothing. What's that called? Slavery. So this is how they've enslaved us, by pretending to give us something of value that isn't of value, and yet it's true. We can go and get what we want with that. But we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to be handing over that cash. We're supposed to be setting off public debt with our signature and using cash simply for items between you and me. Like if you want a haircut and I say, hey, I can cut your hair, Hendrik. So you say, come on over. And then you say, well, how can I compensate you? And I can say, well, let's see. You could invite me for supper. That would be a nice compensation. Or, let's see. Or, you know what? If you don't want to have me to supper, you can just give me some of those notes that you have, that you get from working. And you say, fine. And I take those and I can do what I want with them.
Mm.
Go someplace and get something else. So, but not in the public, just the private. In other words, then I could maybe use my friend's computer for the day. And he says, well, how are you going to compensate me? I say, well, I got these notes that Hendrik gave me. So that's how that's supposed to work. We're not supposed to put those notes into the public. We're supposed to be able to walk into any store. They write us up a bill. We set it off by signing our name, which actually instructs the Treasury to set off their debt. So that then, of course, they can go buy whatever it was I just got from them, like the lawnmower. They go back to their supplier and they get a lawnmower, and they use their account to do that. Mm. Because they've been credited. Now, stop me if it gets too crazy, because I know everything is absolutely the opposite of what we've been thinking.
Yes.
So,
I mean,
yeah, I know it's a little dingy, but
no, it's fine. But let's go back a little bit more and go over it, kind of the overview once more here a little bit, because if we think of money right off the bat, obviously it's a means of exchange. It's better in a way, or easier, I should put it, to carry around like, let's say, paper money instead of carrying around coming with your tractor or whatever it is that you want to exchange, right? So in that regard, we can think of money as a kind of a symbolic means of exchange. But what you are talking about right here now is that money has been transformed into something else. It no longer represents the true value of what it's supposed to be. Is that correct?
Yes, it does get us what we want. As you say, we don't want to walk around with a tractor in our pocket, so we carry cash. But that's just between you and me and the private. But when we go to work, it's true they're giving us that, but we were never meant to earn our living anyway. And that gets into a whole ethics issue where what we're supposed to be doing is whatever our talent is. And we all have a talent, whether we've realized it or not. And so we're supposed to be doing that. I mean, there's carpenters out there. There's people who build lovely furniture. There's people who make lovely music. And so what they ought to be doing is doing that for their fellow man. And when their fellow man says, oh, I just love this piece of music that you played for me, or this desk that you built for me, what can I do for you? And then he says, well, you can do this for me. Or if you can't, or you don't want to, or that's not appropriate right now, tell you what, just give me some of those notes and I can take them someplace and get something from somebody else. In other words, we're not even supposed to have these corporations in our lives. They shouldn't even be existing, but the reason they're existing is essentially to confiscate our labor.
Yes.
And they've enslaved us so we're not working for ourselves anymore and each other. We're working for major corporations, and we're simply cogs in a machine there, and we're not serving anybody by doing it. Because most of the people who work, I mean, you look in any city and you can see these skyscrapers. What are people doing in there? They're not doing anything for their fellow man. They're either doing stockbroking or insurance or banking or something that has involved them, rather enslaved them, in the commercial world. There's no good being done from any of these corporations. Now, yes, these corporations do supply us with the goods that we want. And that's where we say, okay, it was my value that funded the manufacture of this because I have a birth certificate and because you knew that, and by that I mean the alleged governments,
Yes.
What they did was they used the birth certificate as a bond in order to create the credit to create or to manufacture whatever the corporations, in other words, create the corporations and manufacture whatever it is they sell. So that we could simply saunter in there anytime we want and say, I'll take that right there. And there would be no, how are you going to pay for it? Because I already paid for it. It was my credit, my future labor and productivity, my value backed by the bond that was floated against the birth certificate that actually covered the cost to make the lawnmower that I just came in to buy, or to get, actually.
Mm.
So for them to say you owe us, I say, well, what are you smoking? It's prepaid. I already paid for it. And the example I use in my book is, if you have a friend, let's say that I get confused on that stuff. Okay, you come to me and you say, Mary, I'm just about to open a restaurant, but I need the last $10,000 to do it. Can you lend it to me? I say, sure. You say, I'll pay you back with this much interest, and here's when. And I say, fine, away you go. You finish your restaurant. It's absolutely perfect, but you're not doing quite as well as you planned. So, 6 months later you come to me and you say, uh-oh, we're just squeaking by, but I can't pay you back the $10,000. And what was the interest that I said I'd pay you? You know what? I just don't see this happening. How can I make this up to you?
Mm.
I say, well, and you say, look, tell you what, anytime you want to come and eat in my restaurant, just when the waiter hands you the bill, you simply put your signature on it. I'll know it's you, and then I'll say, oh, thank God, Mary is claiming back some of her credit, some of what I owe her. And that's exactly what the government ought to be doing through its government-owned corporations. So let's go back to the lawnmower. We go in. When Sears sees my signature on their bill, they should be saying, Mary's claiming back the credit that we took from her in order to make the lawnmower in the first place.
But then you're
even exchange.
But then you're talking about that you, as a human being, when you come into or enter into this world, that you have a right, so to speak, to sustain yourself as a human being, right? Because there have to be some kind of foundation, so to speak, on this. Because what you're talking about, I mean, you were obviously talking about things like slavery before. I mean, I guess we have to as well also kind of go back into history and just look upon how one human being enslaves another, and that's kind of the initiatory step towards this kind of which at this point is an international system of slavery and control, basically, that we're looking at, you know?
Mm-hmm. So is your question, how all of a sudden do I get this credit?
Well, my question is, I guess, how, just to clarify for our listeners, when you say that, you know, when you go into the store and to get that lawnmower, that actually already is prepaid. There is that you actually have paid for it, or you have a right to take it as yours. Isn't that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. And are you asking why?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do it again. Only those with birth certificates can do that, because what happened in the 30s was mothers were obliged to register their babies' births, because then what the feds, the government, the alleged government, said was, we now know of this other child that's been born, and it's been registered. It's now a corporation, because the name on the birth certificate certainly isn't the name of any baby.
And we need to go through that later, but yeah, continue your story, yes.
Yeah. So what they've done is, well, they've just simply they've registered a name for a corporation, that's all. And so then they send us the birth certificate essentially saying, this is your ticket, this is what you can use to prove that you have unlimited credit from the Treasury. And the reason is because over your lifetime, we intend that you will pay us way more than we will ever pay you. So we're making it unlimited because we need your value in order to pay off the national debt, which of course doesn't really exist, but the concept is that if indeed the World Bank lent governments money, then it has to pay it back with interest. The interest, of course, doesn't exist. That's another subject. But so essentially what they said is throughout your life you'll pay enough in fines and taxes and fees and application, and you name it, that we will collect enough of your dollars in order essentially to enslave you. You will be slave laboring. We will get so much more value from your work, and that's why women apparently don't get quite as much credit as men, but that's questionable. But anyway, so they're anticipating getting way more from us. So what harm does it do them to say, you've got unlimited credit? The trick was they didn't tell us that we had unlimited credit. So here we go blithely along slave laboring due to this alleged national debt. We don't owe anybody anything. And they're taking our value where the remedy actually has been written into, well, here it's the Bills of Exchange Act, but the remedy has been written in, and the remedy is, because we're using your credit, unbeknownst to you, we have to have a remedy, because otherwise it would be unlawful, and we'd be in deep trouble. So we're going to create a remedy, but we're not going to tell you. But the remedy is everything you could ever need or want is prepaid, because we used your credit to create the corporation, and we used your credit to manufacture the goods that you'll want. All you really have to do is sign for them, because we're getting way more from you by slave laboring in a bloody insurance company. And who's that work for? That's for the bank. So any of those downtown buildings are strictly make-work projects in order to pay off the national debt to the World Bank.
Yes.
Utter insanity.
So what you're saying here is that on the surface, so to speak, this is what if you sit down, study the system, right, and learn all the terms and all the linguistics and all the tricks, as it were, of the system, you discover that this is the reality of it. And if you can understand that, are you saying then that there is a way that you actually can do by law this to function, in your life? Can you go into a store and actually just, make this happen, so to speak, get that lawnmower?
You can, but you got to remember that the employees of the store won't know what in hell you're talking about, right?
Right.
So why get into a dissertation? That's not our job to educate. We want to stand there and say, well, look, why don't you know that we have this blah, 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 unlimited credit, and this is mine, and all I have to do is sign it, and you take it to your head office and balance the books on it, blah, blah, blah. No, we're not going to bother with that. So what we're going to do is go along with them and say, here, what do you want? You want my cash? Okay, here.